Well, in ongoing tensions between the U.S. and China, the Biden administration is expected to add more than 30 Chinese companies to its trade blacklist. That includes China's top memory chip maker, Yangtze Memory, or YMTC. This is all according to a report out of Bloomberg. The move would prevent the companies from buying certain American parts unless they get a special export license from the Commerce Department. China's foreign ministry spokesperson saying that the U.S. is, quote, politicized and weaponized economic cooperation, adding that China would take steps to protect the rights of its companies. And to understand how devastating this could likely be, Rachelle, look no further than what happened with Huawei, because this is exactly what happened back in 2019 when the U.S. government essentially said you can't do deals with Google anymore, and that prevented them from doing any kind of 5G technology. So no question, this is really just upping the ante. But you could argue a company like YMTC is kind of been anticipating this for a while. They were placed under heavy export controls back in October. These reports that Apple had already certified these 3D NAND memory chips to source them in uses of iPhones that were sold in China. They have since pivoted out of that. But, you know, you were talking about this yesterday, that China has now reportedly crafted a plan to try and be more self-sufficient. The question is, can they keep up with the rest of the competition globally in the face of all of these headwinds?
And I mean, we don't usually see this sort of tit for tat happen so quickly just after China filed that dispute with the WTO. And it really does harken back to when we saw the sort of tariff standoff at the beginning during the Trump administration. Every day it was, you know, more restrictions, different tariffs. And that ended up essentially in something of a standstill, even though they were able to come up with a phase one trade deal. But here we are again, except this time it's with the future, the essential future of people's economies. What's going to power that next growth in the economy? We know that we've talked about chips being the cornerstone for China, really growing its economy as well, wanting this sort of high-tech supply chain to boost the economy to the next level. At the same time, Biden has made it very clear with the CHIPS Act and then the additional restrictions in the U.S. in October that they're not going to put up, that they're going to continue to put up a fight here. So I think we're going to be continuing to see a lot of this tit for tat. But you have the two biggest economies, very interconnected. We have countries having to pick sides. So this latest escalation, I don't think this is going to go anytime soon. I'm not sure at what point this comes to a head when people have to pick sides. But when you think of what goes into a chip, there are so many different countries involved. No country can be an island when it comes to chip manufacturing.
But the timing of this, I think, is really key, because when you think about somebody like Yangtze Memory, I mean, 3D NAND memory chips is what they're known for. And there has been reporting out there that they are starting to pick up momentum here so they can ultimately compete with the likes of Samsung and SK Hynix. The U.S. is essentially trying to cut their feet off at that time when they're trying to build momentum there. And so you have to wonder exactly the timing of this. But, you know, Rachelle, you mentioned that this tit for tat, the Biden administration, whether it is through the national security side, the State Department, they have all been signaling that semiconductors are at the center of these national security concerns. So you can certainly, if you take their word, I mean, this is just really the beginning, in that the administration is certainly looking to up the ante against some of these companies who are really trying to compete on a global level. It certainly doesn't look like they can do that, at least in the immediate term, if they don't have the equipment coming in from Western countries, right, and if they don't have the technology being imported.
And I mean, a lot of analysts that we've spoken to say, look, the US at the moment does not have a China policy. So when you sort of factor everything in, if you're factoring in now geopolitics with high tech here, I think even though they did have they had a conversation to sort of reset the tone, but this is still a pretty, not a combative relationship, but it's a very competitive relationship. They need each other, but that competition is there. And so I think this is going to be a difficult one to play. We'll have to see who blinks first. Obviously, the ante keeps getting raised, so something we'll continue to keep an eye on.